Cheers, everybody, and welcome back to episode 54 of your favorite late night Friday night hash cast. It is Variables, and we are your hosts, Superior Buds, Pedro, and myself, Frig Broly. How are you guys doing tonight?
Cheers, guys. Doing good. How about you?
Doing well. I'm ready to rock a dab, but just got to remind everybody you can find us on Twitch, YouTube, and X, and of course after the show on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts. Do a little something different tonight. Kind of a new studio, but this isn't so new for those of you guys that have been following me around. You've seen me here once or twice before in front of the big old bear. But I'm gonna smack a raspberry parfait dab, and I gotta say something about this raspberry parfait, guys. I've noticed recently, and I don't think it's just this batch or whatever, because I don't know, maybe I've only grown it a couple times, so maybe I just don't know. But this is one of those like delayed dabs or delayed highs. I don't know if you guys have experienced this
creeper?
Consistently.
Oh,
yeah, man.
Dude, it hasn't been around. I had one in the Terp Wars or the judging process that was sitting around. I'm like, what this is. But of course, I smoked the entire gram through, and by the end of the gram, I was like, holy fuck, dude.
Yeah, I keep taking dabs of this, and I'm like, all right, that tastes great, like cool. I don't really feel super stoned or anything, right? Like the effects aren't immediate, and then all of a sudden, like half hour, 45 minutes later, I'm like on my ass, like can't open my eyes, like what is happening?
One dab too many.
Creeper, yeah. That's just one dab. That's what I'm saying. Oh no! Oh no! I need to charge this. I'll be right back.
That sucks, dude.
Oh,
I got that. Sorry, we got plenty of chargers around here.
As far as how I'm doing, I was just telling Bugsy, I got a little bit of maybe a bug. My voice is going. My sinuses are a little fucked up, and yeah,
it's that weather change, man.
Dude, it literally when I was up elk hunting, it obviously got cold, and then I had to come down off the hill to check on plants and whatnot. And it had snowed down here, down low. Now when we hunt, we're 3,000 feet higher. But ever since then, the dryness and everything, and Hetty Boy and I are realizing that being in our cold room as much as we are, 3-4 days a week or so, 8 hours a day, it's so dry in there. Just so dry, which might be another topic we can talk about with somebody at some point in time regarding humidity levels in a cold room, press room more importantly than a washroom.
Give me your initial thoughts on that, because I hadn't really considered humidity. Obviously, temperature is a major issue when it comes to cold, washrooms.
It's definitely a comfort.
Not so much when it comes to the hydrocarbon lab, but when it comes to humidity, do you want to have it low? Is it beneficial to have it low? Does it matter at all?
I mean, originally I would have said, yes, it matters. Keep your humidity low. But
why?
Just because of the condensation and the moisture, in the.
That's what I was going to say. Low might be the wrong term. Not too high.
Relative?
I would agree. I mean, we're not talking 15, 20. Well,
because you get that dry fucking nose when you're in the cold, and if you're 0% humidity, it's brutal. But you just don't want shit dripping off your everything.
We were talking about bringing in one of those evaporative humidifiers, because it's not putting moisture mist into the air,
Yeah.
So we were talking about maybe bringing one in and keeping it like 40%, maybe just enough to.
I run 50. Yep, just in the middle. It's just easy to manage.
Yeah, it's definitely taken a toll on our fucking sinuses back and forth.
Well, I imagine that running the air conditioners as hard as you have to keep it as cold as you have to relatively dries out the room, right?
Oh, big time, dude.
Yeah,
big time.
But you also have to keep in mind we have water going everywhere, though, too.
Right.
True.
So,
there's a difference. See, here comes the variables. There's a big difference between your personal grow at home and your personal, I should say, processing lab at home versus a commercial processing lab. Because our washroom is completely separate from our press room. Our press room only has hash and only presses rosin. So
Well, I have different. Well, I have different settings for depending on what I'm doing. So I try to keep, because you're right.
That makes sense.
Humidity does matter when you're pressing. That's where you can really. I would prefer much drier when I'm pressing. But at the same time, you got to watch, because you've ever walked around your house when it's too dry.
Static.
It's something, yeah. And I'm stainless tables everywhere. I've gotten zapped by shit. And you're wearing fleece half the time underneath, to stay warm. I've zapped myself a number of times.
It's funny that you bring that up, man, because when it comes to the hydrocarbon lab, those are considerations that most people don't even think about, and you absolutely have to think about while you're operating in that type of environment. And if you can bring the humidity up, you probably should, just for that reason alone. And it affects the type of clothes you wear affects that, right? So just basic cotton, like something that's not going to be driving a bunch of static is probably going to be your best bet. And this is one of the many shirts I wear while I process.
For one of the larger automotive plants, I designed a paint booth that was a zero overspray paint booth. We recycled all the overspray down basically through what looked like a giant bong. We bubbled it through water into bags to catch all the particulates, but it had to be a blast room because it needed to, if it was going to explode, it needed to explode away from the people, so you have 3 walls that are easier to collapse, and then 1 wall that's against the factory that is much more structural. But yeah, when you went in that room, you grounded yourself, you wore a strap, you wore specific overclothes. Static is a nightmare.
Was it a C1D1 environment, or was it just
gosh, I don't
kind of okay, because
it's been
I know they build those rooms pretty impressively, but I think to C1D1 standards would be surprising, I guess. But why not, I guess.
There were a lot of standards for it, I mean, because of accidents, but and
whoops,
unions.
Yeah, I have no input here. I've had no issues with static electricity problems at all. But back to the humidity real quick. The washroom, like you said, I don't think it matters one little bit, but it's the press room where you don't want it too high. And too high, there's a lot of variables there.
It's kind of the same thing, though. And too high, again, it depends on what temperature you press at, because what's your dew point depends on your temperature and your humidity. And that's what you're looking for. What you don't want is that condensation. We work with a lot of metal. You have some cold metal.
Holy shit, are we looking at Pops here?
Yeah.
Hey, hello, sir.
On?
How are
Say
you
hi
doing?
to the old man.
How are you?
I'm doing very well. I was just I looked at the little 360 of your room there. I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, it took a long time to get it this way.
Oh, believe me, I know. You've done a good job. Definitely some years there.
Yeah,
Thank
we've
you.
been in the UP 8 years and we don't have one. So
well, great to meet you. Great to have you on the show for a second, even if it's just for a couple of minutes here. Your son's awesome. Your son's awesome. We all love him.
Yeah, I love him too. Great guy.
He definitely is fun in the industry.
I'm gonna take this off him. I don't know what he's saying. I can't hear it. I can't hear what you guys are saying. I can only hear what he's saying.
I was trying to talk shit, but
why am I not surprised?
Now I have to pull it back.
Cheers.
But yeah, it's really just about the trying to keep condensation down. That's it. You see it a lot in the freeze dryer groups where people will be running their freeze dryers and they're wondering why their doors are covered in condensation. And it's 100% because their room is too humid, or the dew point, more correctly, is off.
So explain to us what that is. The dew point is the point at which the air and the air temperature and the moisture level create water out of nothing, essentially.
It's where the water that's in the air will condensate. Yeah.
Which means what, though? Condensate means it falls out, right? It falls out into like a liquid form. It goes from that kind of vaporish. It's still
And that's where, I mean,
probably a liquid form, but at that point,
a lot of times that's where you have, like, if you have a temperature differential, like we do with the freeze dryer, where you're running negative whatever you can, and then in your room, you're running 60, 70 degrees, you get right against the door, it pulls all that moisture and it just hits that cold and condensates and runs right down. People end up running towels in front of their freeze dryers because they don't know any better. But
so how does that work with house windows? Does that mean like there's like a gap, or what do they call it, a draft or something like that, if you start seeing condensation on your windows in the wintertime here in Michigan?
Either you have single pane windows or you have a draft. Yeah. I have triple pane. So,
well, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yes, triple pane.
Is that like a windshield?
Yeah.
Is that like a windshield for a car? It's triple pane.
Got to.
I was over here. That was torching. Yes, single pane. My windows do that as well. I can't even keep it fucking 40% in my house because my windows are condensed. And with the freeze dryers, they make an insulated pillow that you can put in.
It actually used to come with it, and it doesn't anymore.
Oh shit!
Yeah, they stopped selling it, and
I bet
now
you
Harvest
Rights make some.
There's a lady on Becky's freeze dryer group or something. She makes custom ones. But Harvest Rights, forget how they worded it. It was they stated it was unnecessary, that it didn't need to be there. But I have noticed a big difference in the condensation when I use it versus not. So,
funny little quick story with Harvest Right regarding hash and whatnot. Now you got to remember, I bought my freeze dryer quite a few years ago and had some issues with software, which is why I still run the original version of the software that I have. It's like 3.0.16, like it's old, but it works. And so I had a problem with it, and I don't exactly remember if they like asked what I was using it for or whatever, but they found out and they didn't want to help me anymore. So they're close enough to me. They're in Utah. I told them I'd see them in a couple hours, and I put my freeze dryer in the back seat of my car, and I drove to their office.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I think they're a little more open to hash makers now, but they were not happy that their machines were being used in the cannabis industry. That's for damn sure.
Which is hilarious because that's got to be their biggest customer.
Absolutely. Which is why I think they've kind of turned the page now, where they're much more.
Originally, we weren't their biggest customer, though.
I would agree.
That's COVID and preppers really drove their sales, and that was their. When COVID hit and everyone decided that they were going to move to the woods and be a prepper, freeze dryers were flying off the shelves. And now, like, you can get them used dirt fucking cheap. But I agree that now I would bet that hash makers are, I've seen, you see some labs, they're like 40 freeze dryers,
Boy, we should get into this conversation too regarding freeze dryers and the variables in which you can set them up to.
Let's do it because let's assume I know nothing about them. Well, other than the fact that they fail all the time.
I think I want to have Brian with Pele on here when we have that conversation, because he's actually creating a device and he can just give us a little more information. Yeah, people are starting to create devices to monitor their product much more closely.
Yeah, there's 2 of them out there now.
I think we're starting to find. It's no loss when you have the ice that smells, that has terpenes in it out of the freeze dryer. We're having terpene loss, so I believe that over freeze drying our product is a problem.
That makes sense. I was in a lab, a C1D1 lab, I think 2 days ago in Lansing, Michigan, that had a pretty sizable closed loop system, several diamond miners, multi-room setup, and double stack oven, pretty solid oilless pump, and a cold trap for capturing those terps out of the vacuum oven. But none of that equipment had been turned on in the last year, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
There is absolutely, I think Low Temp put a video out there, but there's absolutely the potential to retrieve the terpenes that are lost and reclaim, that's the better word, and reintroduce.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not, here's my thing. It's like, it's one thing to introduce botanical derived terpenes, something that's not even cannabis derived terpenes, but something that's not derived from the plant that you're extracting. It's outside the box, right? And I'm looking to create the best box of this one strain I can at a time, right? And if I have to introduce something that's not part of that box into that box to make it great, well, then that box isn't great in the first place. But if it takes an additional step on my processing side to make that the best box possible, right, I'm going to do that. And if that means reclaiming or retrieving or saving or whatever you want to call it, some of those terpenes that would have been otherwise lost in the process, I am 100% all for it. Even if it's like a 1% difference, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, and then the conversation becomes, what are we going to use those reclaimed terpenes for?
Well, right. I would assume that they'd just be reintroduced back into the product that they were lost from, right? You know, but and again, say again?
Competitions. Sorry, I'm not trying to stick my foot in my mouth over here, but reintroducing terpenes to obviously get a higher terpene content and a much wetter product for a competition is a thing.
Well, but yeah, for sure. But that's not adding something from that's you doing your due diligence, doing the best that you possibly can as an extractor, collecting the essence of that plant as it was on the day of harvest or where, you know, at whatever point you harvested it and were ready to process it. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. And in fact, you're just taking that next step of reclaiming the same terps that you would have otherwise lost and that your competitors probably did lose. And you know what? If that means you win that award because no one else did that, then guess what? You probably deserve that award.
Yes, definitely.
It's not like you're taking some whatever brand terps of Blue Dream and just throwing it in your hash and calling it Blue Dream hash. You know what I mean? That's where the problem is.
What about if I run 2 strains, 2 cultivars, and I reclaim from both? And then I take the reclaim from both of them and put it only in one.
Or put the honeybee in the ChemD or something like that.
It's still cannabis-derived terpenes, but it's not from the cut that I harvested. Now I've added additional terpenes from a different batch.
And I'm not opposed to that either, as long as you label it as such, like I do with, let's call it Clem and Lime, right? I don't do that with a terpene specifically, but if I'm mix and matching 2 strains in my closed loop system to create a new flavor, I'm going to label it as such.
One more level then. All right. I run 2 batches of the same cultivar. I reclaim terps from both. I take the reclaim and put it all into 1 batches of hash.
Now you've got to call it supercharged Clementine.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like, is there, like, I think that's kind of what Pedro was getting at with the competition side of, like, at what point
it's when you throw the ratio off. It's simple, man. It's when you start introducing more than that was originally there, or you start introducing other than that which was originally there. If it was originally there and you're just going the extra step of collecting it, retrieving it, reclaiming it, whatever, and ensuring that gets in the final product, you are taking steps that no one else likely is.
Right.
That doesn't mean you're doing things wrong. Well, okay, but yeah, proving any of this, I mean, good fucking.
See what I mean? It's a point of fucking argument. It's a point
100%.
It is big time.
Well, sure, but we could argue about anything. You know what I mean? But like, at a certain point, you just got to trust the.
This is where you get into that, where like Pedro and I could enter
the variables,
the exact same cut into a competition. But if Pedro's has 3% more terpenes, everyone's gonna be like, "Whoa, that was such a better grow." But what if he just double collected the terps and it's still from the same cut? Is it cheating? I don't know. But In a competition setting, I would say yes, it's cheating. But from a consumer standpoint, I would say it's trying to give a better product, right? So
exactly.
Where, I don't know where you cut that at. How do you
compete? Well, I guess it's up to I think it's up to the person who's running the competition. That person has to set those ground rules, right? Because if I just say, hey, here's a rosin competition, bring your rosin, you know what I mean? And there's no standards. It doesn't say it has to be single source, doesn't have to be one strain, doesn't have to be one whatever. Then I mean, you're going to have that. And easily I could just walk in with a gallon of lime skunk terps and a gram of lime skunk THCA and say, fuck everyone, but like that's not 98%, that's not what I'm trying to represent. Exactly.
So that's basically why I brought it up. There's a lot of variables. Exactly. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of variables that come up when you start really digging into that. If you're literally doing 1-to-1 at home, whatever. Beautiful.
When we're talking about this too, reintroduction of, and I'm going to butcher the fucking word, anthocyanins. The purples.
Anthocyanins.
Thank you. I was trying to pluralize it, so that was even making it worse.
Anthocyanins.
Yeah. I don't know if I add an ES or an apostrophe. I don't know what the fuck I do here. But like the reintroduction of that to have purple derived rosin, and now everyone's like, whoa, you have purple rosin. But did you really have purple rosin? You painted it with the purple from the plant, but it wasn't purple, right? So
it's all single source. It's all coming from the same plant. You're just taking that extra step and doing something else. Yeah.
This is where I think, at least on the consumer side or the producer side, being honest, clear that this is what we have done. Not necessarily down to the fucking, but we've mixed these two together and we've added, I don't know if they necessarily need to go back to added terpenes or not, but I definitely think clarity is
it's labeling and packaging, right? We're so bad at that in the United States about like labeling things accurately and based on their sources, and it's just we're just not really like up to par with that. So I don't know. I think maybe we should be the ones setting the standard here and just putting out the
So I'll take this one further here. We had a discussion on X this past week about the labels on things, right?
I posted that a couple of weeks ago.
Single source,
yeah.
Organic versus sun grown and hand trimmed. You've got all these labels people are putting on it, and to me, those labels don't mean as much as what Fagruoli's talking about being clear on, which is mixes and additives and what did I do that caused the result to be different from what you would get direct out of the plant, right? Is there something special done to this? I think that's more important to me than
at that point in time. You almost need a fucking insert, that explains everything that you, I guess, want to pass on.
I mean, we talked about it a long time ago on the show. Leafly tried to do their, I don't even know what you call it, like basically a periodic table type of system, right? So they gave every strain had its own little element and it had some numbers around it and color coding, and it meant certain things. They were trying. Something like that would be interesting if we could, but trying to get everyone to fucking agree, right? That's gonna.
Then the question, well,
if we had a federal standardized body, it might be different.
Yeah, I suppose so. But then it comes down to how much is too much.
Right, because you don't want to add, like I said, labels that don't really matter, but you also don't want to miss those ones that do matter.
And most likely, making that a standard or a requirement is going to up the cost of production.
And that's the other thing.
On the commercial side,
you have to be cautious to walk that line. You can't put more burden on them where it's like, oh, now it costs me an extra X number of man hours.
Oh, we want to talk about adding burdens, do we? Okay. I'll go ahead and share this screen then. Let's go ahead and pop over to my buddy Neil, Michigan cannabis lawyer, and we've got some updates here from some proposed rule sets from the CRA here in Michigan. So he's going to break it down for us. I don't know. Hopefully you guys can read this. If not, I'm going to read through it real quickly, as quickly as I can. It's several posts here, but all right, draft rules decoded. Stay informed, stay ahead. CRA just dropped a game-changing set of proposed rules from compliance overhauls to stricter tracking systems. These updates should reshape the industry. Again, we're talking about Michigan here. Let's dive into the highlights and what they mean for businesses. Our 420.1.2 AA, I'm not going to read all those, but change definition of temporary event so that a license is only required if marijuana will be sold. License will not be required if marijuana is only consumed. CLL takeaway, you can host and charge for BYOB style cannabis events or even share samples without a license. Let's spark up a conversation. How will this reshape Michigan cannabis culture? Let's just go ahead and stop right there. So in Michigan, we've had very, very few actual licensed temporary events, and they come and go. You know, it's a temporary license, so it's kind of just for the day of or weekend of or whatever. This is essentially saying that moving forward, they will only be requiring those licenses if cannabis is actually being sold. So, I mean,
sounds like a good move, right?
Yeah, I kind of honestly, it does, and I think what they're trying to do is make it more of a viable situation, license, scenario. And there's, it's on the regulatory economic side of things with actually like coordinating licenses and who's selling what and who's buying what. It's been a fucking mess. So this is kind of an interesting thing. This might actually allow some people, even in the legacy side of things, to maybe host some sort of events that, cannabis isn't sold at. So I think that's a good thing. I don't know, any takeaways for you guys before we move on? I know you already kind of chimed in here, Superior, but
yeah, I'm pretty lost on what you were just.
Yeah. If you're not like in tune with this style, yeah. All right, so let's move on. So
I just know that the more regulations that you put on, and not that they're not needed, but the more regulations that you put on the products on the production side, on the growing side, is always going to increase costs.
I do tend to agree, but I agree, but I do think that one is one of those ones that actually reduces the regulations surrounding something
removing license, which is rare.
Exactly. That's not going to be the case for most of these.
Government usually doesn't give shit back.
No, man. I always, okay, I'm going to share this story now that we're talking about it because I learned 15, 20 years ago or whatever about how regulatory bodies worked. And I, at one time in my life, was an NCAA athlete. And at that time, there used to be posters all over our, athletic facilities about vitamin water and how vitamin water was sponsoring the NCAA and it's delicious and blah, 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 right? At the same time, vitamin water was sponsoring the NCAA and we were getting thrown these ads in our face day in and day out. Vitamin water was banned by the NCAA because of taurine and ginseng and caffeine and all these things you weren't supposed to be taking as an athlete, right? So it's like one of those things, like there's just catch-22s constantly in this regulatory bullshit. So let's move on. Growers and processors to document in the statewide monitoring system, aka metric, the location of product at each level of location available to the license. So CLL takeaway, track every leaf, every mylar. CRA wants growers to document the exact room locations for all products. Could be good use of RFID tags, no room for errors, quite literally. This one is definitely added regulation. I mean, this is, we're talking going from like just tracking batches as they go from harvest to process to sale or whatever, to literally where they are at in the room and which room they go to from that. Well, might be a little too far.
Well, yeah, I don't like that one, but I do operate that way. So
right.
That's what my software does. And I know that that's what you're going to end up having to do. So his talking about RFID might be too far because that's going to add cost. You're going to have readers everywhere. And all kinds.
Big time. Yeah.
So
I mean, a tag on every plant. Talk about metric tags being expensive.
Exactly. I mean, you already have metric tags. So what you're going to find is you're going to find people getting tells on and simple handheld scanners, excuse me, that they can write cheap software on. And you can go up and you can scan each tag. You're going to scan a room when you walk in, and you're going to walk down the aisle and scan every plant, and it's going to verify, that type of shit. It sucks. That's a rough one because you need tech to handle at scale.
I know where when I get 900 grams of hash, whatever that day I have to press, I know what building that came from, and I know what room and what bed. I don't know the location in said bed, but I know what bed it came from, which is valuable information.
It is.
And it is. And that's metric tracking as it is now. But this is talking about now you'll know where it was yesterday, the day before, the 3 days ago in the afternoon, and then the morning before that. It's like moving. It's almost, every time it moves,
plant's moving.
It has to be tracked. Well, throughout the facility, it will be, yeah.
Why would it be moving?
Because you have grow rooms, you have dry rooms, you have processing rooms, you have trim rooms, you have storage rooms, you have all that needs to be tracked every single time. Every time it moves.
Yeah, every time that we move a product for whatever reason, we have to document it in metric. Say where.
There you go. So we're catching up to you then.
And who carried it? I have to, when I receive it, I have to sign it, the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm. So for Growly, I treated this like I treat my warehouse management system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I built what I've already built for massive warehouses, except for cannabis plants. So I expected this. I feel like this is data, though, also that the facilities are going to be able to use. I've gained a lot of insights from running multiple plants in the same spaces and different spaces right next to it, having the data from end to end and being able to compare, because my environment's pretty well dialed in. Everything's the same, but if I have a blip, what does it change? And that type of stuff. Being able to track, is one half of my room different than the other half when I run plants.
Yeah, but this isn't for purposes of plant health or anything like that.
Oh, I know.
Simply variable of tracking.
I think that's an addition that the facilities are going to have to utilize because they're going to be forced to do this for regulation anyways. And so as a side effect of tracking it, you're going to have that data. So you might as well start using data scientists and analyzing it.
But this isn't tracking that's going to help you on the data science level of plant growth or health or success. This is simply where it is.
If you also know what your room status was during all those time periods.
Yeah, but we already have those sensors. Those are already integrated at the plant level. And this is something totally different from that. It has nothing to do with the plant health life cycle or anything like that. It's simply the location of the product in the building. Again, I could see how there's data that will be useful from that and how most grows, if not all grows, should utilize that. I think actually very few, if any, will utilize where it is in the building to treat their plant health symptoms.
Do you think?
I think you're going to see that more often than you're expecting. There's a software solution.
I don't, because I think it would already be in play.
There is already a software solution out there.
Right. And there's very few people using something like that.
Right. But if you're already having to track the data, why wouldn't you utilize the benefits of the software?
Because most people aren't as smart as you, Superior Buds. Most people don't give a shit about the data. Most people just want to fucking grow a plant and harvest it and sell it.
As business grows and you optimize and you have to keep that ROI up, they are going to start
hiring, which is where we're at people right now.
They are going to hire people like me to analyze the data to do these things.
Yeah.
Before I forget it, does the value of this information change when the type of grow changes, i.e., organic versus another style?
100%. It changes if you're the same style in a different building. That's why the data is important, knowing, because every room acts different. Everything has its own quirks, right? And that's what this data can give you is, hey, do I have half of one of my rooms that's producing worse than the rest? And you have to have that end-to-end data, and you have to have plant data, because you have to know what cultivar it was. You can't just, there's a lot of, you have to be able to mix all the data. So it's environmental data, it's the plant data, it's knowing how your room's laid out, knowing what each room's growing, what the lights are like, every little detail.
Right. But I think the people that are doing that already, and this will have no effect on that. It will just force people that aren't doing that to have extra data. It's whether 100%. Or not they actually utilize it.
I'm not
which
saying
is probably more labor, more time, more money.
Exactly. And going back to the original point, this is one of those things that will for sure increase costs, especially 100%. If they include RFID tagging. But
time out.
Even go ahead.
If you use the information properly, and you actually
could be a benefit.
So right. Is it really,
So that's what
it is. No, I know, but this is what I'm getting at. It will be less ROI across the board because most people aren't going to take advantage of it. And even if they do, it's going to take someone that's probably a high paid salary to actually go in and analyze that data. Now, maybe I'm just throwing this out there, Superior. Maybe you need to start a consulting company. Maybe it's time to get in on that end of things.
My software's in use.
There you go.
I mean,
license it up. Let's go.
it doesn't just power my grow. There's a reason I write code for a living.
There you go. All right, so let's move on.
What else?
This next one is there's a bunch, man. We only went through one page out of like 6 or 7. Require processors to document in the statewide monitoring system, aka metric, the amount of raw product used in the extraction/distillation process. I don't know how it's not already, and the amount of product created after the extraction/distillation process is complete, and require a new package tag for intermediary products, additions, and form changes. So the CLL takeaways: new draft rules could create bottlenecks for manufacturers. More detailed documentation, including tracking form changes and batch creation. This move fights the entry of illicit products into the market and boosts accountability. Should help get some of those 200% returns on distillate under control. Is this the future or of better transparency or a challenge for the industry? I mean, I'll let you guys talk first on this one because I feel pretty strongly.
First and foremost, this is what I do every fucking day. I know exactly how much comes in, and I had to transfer it. And I know exactly how much I produced, and I know exactly how much is waste, i.e. the bags after I'm done pressing them. And that becomes another tag. The waste, the bags, the pucks, we call them, becomes a tag, and the rosin becomes a tag. Now we can also separate it down to the grade and create more tags, but we decide not to at this point in time.
Superior thoughts?
I'm surprised that that's not already a requirement for Michigan.
Right? I no wonder we're having so much distillate going in the back door.
I'm thinking through the software, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I remember this part. Like, I'm trying to figure out why we don't do this in Michigan. Yeah.
I know. I don't understand this.
Like, you already, as a processor, want to do this. I mean, Pedro, I do it at home, right? I do it on my fucking whiteboard, but I do it at home.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's just absolutely.
It's basic.
The one thing I will say is the intricacy of the requirements is a little tedious and is a little bleh. And there is bottlenecks. There is definitely bottlenecks.
I would definitely love to see lower cost, better technology for this type of shit and eliminate. The manual entry drives me fucking nuts.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like about a lot of the metric system. I just don't like how much data they ask for. There's too much of it that could be easier if they, but again, that goes back to what you're saying, increase costs and all that, but you can actually reduce labor costs for data entry for a little bit higher upfront cost.
Right.
So,
but data entry is, it's $12 an hour job or whatever the minimum wage is nowadays.
Well, Pedro, how much time do you spend for each batch doing the required entry?
I mean, we have Google. We have a shared Google document, so it's all tied in. So when I receive my hash in my press room, I match my inputs with the washing results. So it's all, I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly.
No, I get you. Yeah, you're basically building out a spreadsheet, right?
Yes, we are building out a spreadsheet. So the information of the wash, the percentages, all of the weights, everything is all right there, down to the micron screens. He gives me the percentages of everything, because we want that information.
Totally.
And then I have to enter it into a spreadsheet, which takes me a minute maybe. And then Heady Boy has to create tags and obviously label jars. And I would say per batch, no more than 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
And a batch is anywhere from 600 to 2,000 grams of hash.
And does that include all the entry into the metric system?
Yeah.
That's so. Yeah. So have you guys automated that then through the Google Doc? Is that what?
No, that has not been done yet.
So is so when you said Heady Boy creates the tags, is he going into metric then and actually?
No, that goes to the next department, and they create that.
So see, that's kind of what I was getting at is
you're going to send Superior into a spiral.
Yeah, I know.
What are we talking about?
I know. There's
the point
labor
is it does add a little bit of labor, but we've streamlined it down to
right. So it's not taking your labor; it's taking someone else's lower cost labor.
Right.
Most likely.
Ish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Compliance. That's what a compliance officer is for. They take care of all that shit. It's not a low cost position, but it's a trustworthy one.
I enter everything onto the spreadsheet just like I would at home, and I do nothing with the metric. That's why all the intricacies, all the details, don't take it yet, because I have to. It's the point to the viewers is that, number one, this should have already been done. Period. And metric is a pain in the ass to deal with.
So what I would love to see, like from your standpoint, even if your job is a bag comes to you, you grab a scanner, boop, it's already transferred to you. Now everything's in metric. Then you do your job and you go over and you go to your scanner and you say, I just produced 6 100-gram jars. You hit a button and a printer there kicks out all your labels. You bump. You scan. And now everything, that's how, you've got to understand, like my warehouse receives about 180,000 products a day and ships 180,000 products a day. So moving things in and out has always been a passion of mine. You got to move it fast, and it sucks when you have to pause and do something. Granted, you're not doing it directly, but in most smaller businesses, that's the processor's job, is sitting there doing that. And it's not what they want to be doing. No one wants to do data entry. I don't even want to do fucking data entry.
And then you really got to just look at ROI, because transitioning to something like that, it would not be cheap. And for me as a processor, what they're paying me takes me 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Well, what I'm saying is,
right? If you're pushing out 600 grams a day, that's a lot different than 180,000 products a day,
Well, what I'm also talking about though is the entry cost for something like that. That scanner and the printer is less than $1,000, and you're done. And now you've eliminated a position that has to do all the work of metric. If metric was configured correctly, that's why I think this is a metric software problem. I think they have
100%.
built a data entry platform. They did not build like I would have built a WMS.
Yeah, they need someone like you in there actually that understands not only the product but the process. Like I think they have people in there that understand one or the other, but not both. And
they have a legal team.
Metric is taking over the country. We just re-signed for another 5 years with them. Like this sucks.
So this is a lot like. So I did a lot of work in the mortgage industry too, in the software side. And what you end up with is a legal team that tells you what you have to do, because there's a lot of legal in mortgages, just like there is in Canada.
Right.
So the legal tells you what you have to do, and the developers are not good at putting that together. Like developers
translating it.
Yeah, developers make ugly programs, and that's what Metric reminds me of. It's a developer driven system.
100%.
Man, I don't know how you would present that and promote that, but that there is definitely a need.
You say your UI sucks.
Well, no, what you do is you present it in dollars. You say, you know what? Here's how much Metric costs you up front, and here's how much it costs you per year in salaries and labor. And then you go, here's the upfront of this solution, and here's the negligible yearly.
So that would then require you to go to them. The standpoint I was saying is, how do you advertise? How do you?
Well, that's what we're talking about, is like Metric is taking over. I mean, they're a monopoly.
Yeah, they don't have to advertise. Yeah.
No. So getting into the market is tough because Metric is signing deals, multi-year deals with states.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to go to Metric and you have to sell it as this is going to increase your ROI, and you have to tell nothing to the customers about it. You just keep charging them. And you know what? You charge them more because you increase their capabilities, yet you decrease your labor. Yeah. Yeah, that's how you sell it. Yep. It's not going to be cheaper for the state or the processors or the growers or anybody but Metric. But hey, that's where. All right, let's move on. This last one on this page is, well, inevitably about what we're kind of talking about. Goodbye to abbreviated package tags. It says the CRA proposes full tag numbers for product tracking from raw materials to intermediary forms. Is this a step forward, or is it overkill for business? Drop your take. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Again, this seems like the last one. It's like we're abbreviating numbers. Why are we not putting the full fucking number on there? What are we doing?
I don't see any difference in what it's going to do for them. It's just a longer tag, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh God, we have to thermal print another centimeter on our, like tag.
Another 6 characters.
So we're literally, if I'm understanding that, we're literally just cutting numbers off of.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, right now we're. I don't think that's the actual reason, but maybe that's what they're saying. I don't know.
It seems fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, and they're not that long. It's like, how many digits far do you want to go down pi? It's 3.14, whatever, right? Like, it doesn't matter if we get to 19 or 23. It's all the same shit.
Well, and that would be also a size of the operation. They would potentially not require as many numbers if you're not growing as many plants, right?
I think metric numbers are standardized to length, right? Like,
yeah,
there'd probably be like a 000 then 291.
Right. It's something silly, but still.
Nonetheless, it's a digit.
It's supposed to be a non-repeating thing too, right? So that two places aren't generating the same.
Yeah.
So there's an algorithm around it, which is why they can cut some numbers, though. That's also why they can cut some numbers. We do the same thing with like MD5 type hashes in computers, but it's still not a good idea. I mean, you put.
I know what's right. Like we're talking in computers bits, but we're in printing, I guess labels. We're talking. It's just not that much. Yeah. And we're talking for a batch of labels, not even just one label.
My bottom line thought of it is it just seems ridiculous. Period.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it seems ridiculous that we're not already doing it, right? Not that we have to do that. Like,
yeah,
that
it seems ridiculous that it's being abbreviated anyways.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I agree. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Like,
all right.
Who came up with some of those original fucking rules? Holy shit. I have never heard that abbreviated tag one.
Seems very sloppy.
It does.
There's a bunch of small groups that got together and kind of proposed the rules for each individual license when it came time to licensing these 7, 8, whatever 9 different types of licenses in Michigan, and each one of those groups got to kind of like suggest their own rules, and then those all got put into a blender, and out came what the fuck we have now, which is the MRTMA or whatever.
Freeze dried it and pressed it, and this is what we got.
100%.
I'm just really. This is all Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. This is all Michigan.
I'm really surprised at how far back you guys are.
It is when you start looking at these rules, it's like, oh, no wonder this is going on. No wonder there's so much bad product. No wonder there's such a low price because of backdooring from Cali. And you know what I mean? There's a lot of things we can talk about down that rabbit hole, but let's just get through this document here. This is the second post from Michigan cannabis lawyer, my buddy Neil. He says, the CRA just released groundbreaking set of proposed rules that could redefine the cannabis industry from stricter tracking to major compliance changes. These updates aren't just tweaks, they're potential game changers. Here are a few big ones. Require licensees who are creating any pre-roll product to have the product tested in final form after they have been placed into the pre-roll delivery system. This includes both raw pre-rolls and infused pre-rolls. Non-cannabis ingredients are not permitted in pre-rolls. I love this shit.
Yeah.
So CLL take. No more fake terps in cannabis products, bitches. Those short, artificially flavored pre-rolls, which I want to get to another infographic so bad that I'm just going to go ahead and try to share it. Where'd my mouse go? Oh, no. All right, there it is. I'm going to go ahead and share this tab real quick. Just kidding. I lost it. All right, we'll come back to that. Yeah, so no more Jeters. I'll just say that. Consumers gain transparency into what they're purchasing. Final products like infused donuts will now be tested as a whole, not just individual components. What do you think about this move towards stricter testing? Guys, is this another one of those we're really not doing this already type situations? Or is this a, well, yeah, no, I want my fake terps, like, fuck off.
Come on, neither of us are going to say we like fake terps.
First and foremost, working on this goddamn laptop is trying to zoom in and read this, and with the way I'm a little high. That capsule I took before the show. No, that's okay, but adding fake terps is just ridiculous. I don't even understand exactly what the question is there. But so not
you're familiar with Jeters, right?
Well, not that term, no.
Brand.
All right, Jeters is one of the biggest pre-roll brands in the United States. Obviously, I think they're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in California. They're definitely the biggest in Michigan. And they have this little tiny, I mean, they got all sorts of pre-rolls, but a lot of them are infused, a lot of them are flavored, a lot of them are just remediated product, I would assume, with some extra razzle-dazzle spit on top, right? None of that is going to be able to happen here in Michigan if this passes, because we won't be allowing any additives according to this.
So you won't be able to infuse it. You won't be able to infuse a joint.
Not with botanical terpenes.
Okay.
Now, here's the caveat. It looks like it says non-cannabis ingredients are not permitted in pre-rolls. So if you're deriving terpenes from cannabis, I guess you could still use them and still fake it out, right? It's just going to cost you more, I assume now. Again, this is one of those things to me. It's like, wait. You guys were testing the flour that you're putting in, which is all remediated bullshit. You were testing some hash you put in, which is just all dry sift collected off the floor. And then you're not, I know you weren't testing these botanical terpenes that you were buying from some other source, probably from not even the same country that the cannabis is grown in. And you're taking all three of these ingredients and throwing it into one thing and calling it a final product without testing it. It's like, what are we doing?
We were testing the meat before they made the hot dog.
Yeah, I mean, I think it needs to be tested every step of the way.
In its final form, or at least in its final form. Every step of the way is great for the growers. It's great for the processors. It's really not all that great for the consumer. It's just data for them, I guess. Really what they need to know is what's in the final form, right? Because you could lose things along the way. And again, like that data is not necessarily helpful for them. It's helpful for us. But
I could see
the fact that we aren't testing it in its final form, what is happening?
I'm kind of with Pedro where it's like every time you transform the product. So you test flour, and then if you wash it or you blast it, you test that. And then if you mix flour and that together, you test that, right? Like anytime.
I agree, but that's only helpful for us as growers and processors. It's not really helpful for the consumer. They need to know what the final product is.
100%. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, but it also prevents you from failing from mold once you've already added your freaking rosin to it.
Right. Which is why they started requiring that in Michigan. Was it last year? Maybe 2 years ago, something like that. Because they were like, no, like let's stop the fucking cause of the issue before we get to the issue.
It's so weird. Yeah, I can't believe we weren't testing the final though. Like that's.
I knew that about pre-rolls because I was been in some processing facilities where you're looking at these bins of flour that's trim that's mixed with dry sift essentially, and it's like this isn't homogenized, guys. Like you shake this bin 3 times on the table and now all of a sudden all that dry sift's at the bottom. Like that's just how it works, So unless you're like constantly mixing this thing,
pre-rolls, it's the worst looking. Like it's just such a
yeah.
You hate what?
Seeing a pre-roll station.
Oh, I don't even want to talk about it.
They're just fucking. I've never seen a pre-roll station that looks good.
Yeah, I would probably have to agree there. Some that were no, you're right. All right, let's move on.
I will just agree and no comment.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. That's where I'm at with it too. Tag and track new plant tag rules R422.055. Draft update. Growers will now be required to physically attach plant tags to cannabis plants once they reach 8 inches tall. These tags must stay in place during the curing and drying phases. This helps prevent illicit products from entering the regulated market, strengthens product tracking in the statewide system. So again, this is just instead of leaning a tag up against the plant, I guess, at a certain point, you have to actually secure it on the plant, and then you have to have it there until it's all the way done through curing and drying.
It's always funny when you see the small plants, they got the giant loop on the tag because that plant's going to be a fucking monster.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
It's like it's really not on the plant. You could pull that bitch off and tuck it back in if you needed to.
Right. Seriously, these oops, I broke a branch off, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. This doesn't seem like too nuanced or too like crazy to me or anything like that. It just seems like, again, like this is probably just like dotting the I's and
I was going to say
it's
crossing the T's, dotting the I's. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's making sure people aren't losing tags and using that as an excuse.
Yeah, and it must be happening enough that this is something that they have to address.
There's a reason that they tell you the coffee's hot at McDonald's, right?
Yeah, well, we studied that lawsuit in my marketing class. It's funny. So let's go to, I think there's another one here. Maybe. No? Oh, I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Here we go.
I tried to click.
Oh, no, hold on. Go back. That's also the wrong thing. I like it's that you also tried to click.
I mean, talk about great UI development.
Yeah, gray on gray. I think there's a little arrow in there. All right, so this says require marijuana businesses, I love that we're still using the H, to adhere to recognized cannabis standards for general operations, quality systems, cultivation, processing, sampling, testing, and other cannabis standard practices published by an approved independent third party. Require marijuana businesses to keep and provide evidence of compliance for adherence to the published standard. So Michigan is stepping it up with new cannabis standards for operations, quality systems, cultivation and processing, testing, and more. Here's why it's a game changer. CLL takeaway. Boost trust. Consistent, high quality, safe products for all. Industry growth puts Michigan on the map for cannabis excellence. Fair and transparent. Clear rules equals better business and regulation. Innovation ready. Encourages cutting edge ideas and practices. More regulation ahead. Businesses will need to meet higher standards and provide proof of compliance. So GACP-GMP certified by ISO 17065 is coming. Don't get left behind. This is a lot to take in, and I feel like Superior is probably qualified to talk about this. Will you give us your take, sir?
From a business standpoint, I like it. I mean, it's more regulations, never my favorite thing, but putting in high quality standards does help bring it raises everybody's quality. I'm still reading through here again.
I know I'm still at the top.
Yeah.
Can you explain or expand on how that helps?
What does quote unquote, and maybe I'm just too high, but what does quote unquote evidence of compliance mean? Break that down.
So
that's where I stopped.
So it's a lot like in any business, when you have to prove compliance, you usually have to go to a third-party service that will come in and vet your SOPs and sign off. As an example of this, if you take credit cards on the internet, you have to become PCI compliant. To do this, you have to pay a third-party company to vet you. I just did this.
I don't want to give anybody access to my SOPs.
A compliance team, you will, though. That's what they want to know. They want to know that they want to know that everyone's following your SOPs. That's the other thing too. You know, do you have the rogue guy who just doesn't listen to what you say because you gave him extra access?
As far as my knowledge goes, they have the ability to, at least come in and inspect, but the evidence of compliance, quote unquote, is catching me up.
Yeah, I don't think with like.
Is the evidence the SOPs themselves?
Sometimes.
No, that's the standard at which they're comparing it to.
Yeah, it depends on what your.
So are they going to come?
And I'm talking about multiple different businesses here, so I don't know what the standards for compliance are for this.
Yeah, no, I'm just.
But in general, there are times where you do have to provide your full SOPs, and like we have to provide every person who has access to every level and what they can do in our systems, and making sure that you don't as a good scenario for this. Do you have somebody who has too much access? As an example, they have access to product and they have access to metric where they could make product vanish. You may have to start splitting roles. That's a lot.
We actually don't. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but we don't.
A lot of times it is very intentional as part of your security of the product, right? It's the 2-key nuke, right?
For sure. It's an easy freaking, yeah.
Come on. We've all seen Half Baked, right? Where he just goes and forges the doctor's paper and goes and gets a pound of weed. Like you can't have that shit happening in your facility.
Real close. And let me go here. If Fergoli's saying that evidence of compliance is not simply providing an SOP, that would mean that someone's going to come in and watch you work.
Yes, that's why you have 90 days of footage on your camera so they can go back and fucking make sure you're complying, dude.
Touché.
I'm sorry, but this is one of those things where we're getting so far past where this should be regulated. I firmly, still to this day, and I've been saying this for 10 fucking years, this should be regulated somewhere between caffeine and tomatoes. And the fact that we have to go to this level of ISO compliance to get a product to the store shelf that someone is ultimately going to buy, mark my words, $1 a gram. We're spending this fucking much money on compliance for something that's going to ultimately be $1 a gram. I think it's insane, and I think we're going way too far with the regulation.
I will half agree with you. So
Are you real quick? Are you? I was going to say, are you being sarcastic with $1 or $2?
No, fuck no, no. That's where it's headed. And if you think I'm wrong, wait until not interstate. Interstate commerce. Fuck it. Once we hit interstate commerce, that's what it'll be.
Variable. Are we talking rosin versus resin?
It doesn't matter. Well, no, I'm not talking flour. I'm talking flour, not the extract. So that could be $5 a gram.
$1 a gram for flour.
Yes, but it's already. I mean, even extracts are already selling at $2.50 a gram. So maybe I'm way higher than I should be on the flour price. Maybe it's 10 cents a gram.
You guys are selling concentrates for $2.50
at wholesale. Yeah, that's what we're going for wholesale in Michigan right now. Okay. So market, I don't know, $7.50, like $8.
$5 is pretty standard for BHO.
Ouch. And that's what I was getting at. Is do you think there's a difference and going to be a difference between my solventless processing and your
you can get I have Bubble Man's hash rosin for $25 a gram.
As a consumer,
out the door.
And that's,
you can actually get it for 20 a gram.
Is that rosin?
That is his cold cured live rosin.
Wow.
With his name on it.
Here we are
in Michigan.
That's fresh
$73.99 an ounce.
Fresh drop too, Pedro. That is brand new drop.
Damn. That's where we're at, bro.
We are not there.
We have. Yeah, we might be behind regulatory wise, and I think that's why we're ahead. I hate to say ahead like that, but ahead of where you guys are economically, because I think that's where ultimately you guys will be headed, just like everyone will. There's this price.
It seems like our regulations.
I don't know if we've hit the floor yet. Yeah, but it's an ever-changing thing, right?
Do you think that has any effect on the overall or at the final price for the consumer? The regulations?
100%. That's pretty much what drives most of this.
So do you think that
it's not quality, it's not packaging, it's
improving your regulations, your prices will then go up?
No, not unless you regulate the supply out of the market. Mm-hmm. And right now in Michigan, we've hit our max supply in the market.
It's a buyer's market.
And that's why we're not allowing any more excess growers. And we're only allowing Class C grow licenses, which I don't know how long that's going to last, because I think the state will get sued. But you can't just stop allowing people to grow. I mean, that was the whole fucking point, So
federal legalization.
Well, that's where it will head eventually, but again, that's not going to help.
That's your only savior.
The business side of how though? The savior from what?
If you're able to sell to different states,
it will raise the prices.
But now you're competing with Colombia at that point.
Yeah, it'll be a short-term bump until supply in the other states can ramp up their own production.
Yeah,
I do agree with you. You will have exports will be more valuable than selling in state initially. But how long does that bump last? I don't know.
Not very long. No more than 2 years.
Harvest.
Some states that are illegal, the prices are ridiculous. And when I have friends come from other states and they see the rosin, I'm like, yeah, this isn't very good. And they're like, dude, we don't even see product this good. So I think the price, at least initially, would definitely go up.
Yeah,
with federal legalization.
But I mean, like Sheldon just said, Oklahoma is another one that is a mass excess of cannabis. Mm-hmm. You have land and you can get a license to grow there.
Dude, we can't wash and press fast enough. We're
exactly red.
We're waiting for product to come back, flour to come back from testing, so we can wash it. Just harvested, we are on the grower's ass.
And that's a good problem to have. And that's the really difference between a connoisseur level product and a mass produced product, in my opinion.
I would agree.
Because that's the only thing that's going to keep certain tiers alive is the demand. and the demand is going to come from people that know what the fuck they're looking for, not someone that just wants to get high or just someone wants to try, weed or whatever, or has access to it and is willing to pay that $5 a gram. It's going to come from someone that knows what the fuck they're looking for, wants that, that. Again, I hate to fucking compare this to alcohol, but like the top shelf, whatever it is, like
I was just going to say, this is going to create connoisseurs.
Yeah, you're going to have the craft market just like you have the Anheuser-Busch market, right? But it's going to be
a very small sliver. Yeah,
very thin.
Yeah, and then you've definitely got to find a niche.
Yeah, and if you don't,
even if that's market,
even if that's market, because it's not going to work out.
Yeah, even if that niche
or packaging, it could be it could be something as this cool packaging or cool novelty product, novelty thing that launches you right and gives you that success that happens all the time.
We got something cool coming at Eden. Just wait.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
I don't want to wait.
I wish I could. I wish I could. I wish I could. I've tried it. I've played with it. The device is could be. Just wait and see.
Yeah.
Getting back to the ISO rules, what I was going to say, I kind of half agree with you. If you look at other businesses, and where I think they're screwing up with this is you need a cutoff. You need ISO level regulations for large processors. And I think that's where they should be applying those. I think that if they were to apply those to the MSOs or the, greater than 100,000 plants type of places, and then the smaller growers, the more, like you said, craft and such, doesn't have to go to all of these lengths. That would make much more sense.
Do you think that like they will apply?
Sorry.
Yeah. Do you think they will apply these across the board, or do you think they will actually have some level of tier system like every fucking other industry does?
That's what I know. That's what I'm thinking. I have not looked up this ISO.
Because it's got to be like a 100, 500 employee type deal. It's got to be based on something. Maybe
so
it's inventory.
Yeah, there's got to be a line.
This is not a cannabis specific standard
certification. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a it outlines requirements.
It's a manufacturing thing, right?
Yeah, it's a manufacturing thing. So it should have tiers.
But whether or not the Michigan CRA wants to apply those tiers might be up to them, right? Like, they could just say, hey, everyone has to be ISO fucking 17065 certified, like regardless of what even license you have. It could just be everyone in the industry. And it's just like, at that point, we are just shooting for Anheuser-Busch and Walmart.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
nothing else.
That's going to just create only large grows, or we're going to require only large grows. It's going to
exactly
small.
It regulates out everyone else, and that's what they've been trying to do in Michigan from the start. So I wouldn't put it past them, but fuck me, right? All right. While he's looking up that standard, I don't know if you still are, but I'm going to move on to the next one. I think we
go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's a lot to dig into.
I'm way too high to read that fucking thing right now. I read that first sentence about 3 times right there and was like, yeah, not right now.
I feel that 100%. All right, so this is I think there's maybe one more after this, but let's keep pushing ahead, guys.
Saw that one.
CRA we did? Maybe we went backwards. Well, let's go. Was this the other one we went to? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right, there we go. So harvest where you grow. Draft rule alert. The CRA is clarifying that all harvest batches must be dried and trimmed at the same location where they were cultivated. So I think this is maybe getting rid of some of those trim crews or something like that. But CLL takeaway prevents illicit products from entering the regulated market. Obviously, I would assume that would be part of it, but strengthens supply chain integrity, of course. A step toward transparency in Michigan cannabis. Rethinking marijuana waste. Oh, wait, that's a whole nother rule. So let's back up. That's it. Clarifying that all harvest batches must be dried and trimmed at the same location.
I again, that's one of those that's like, yeah, that's fine because it only really fucks really big people. So
It's fair enough.
I don't really care.
Yeah. Fuck it. We'll move on from there. I like that. A step towards transparency in Michigan.
Why does it only fuck big people?
Because most people that
don't have multiple locations,
like harvesting. Yeah, most people that are smart harvesting small batches are just drying and trimming in the same fucking facility. You know, it's the people that have like 23 greenhouses up that
I have 5 different grows and I have 2 different processing centers, and yeah.
See the variable.
And one of them is a dry room.
Because we bring trimmers and harvest crews in to do this at the location.
Right, but you're not moving the product to a different location.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So you'd be good under this. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't know who is, but apparently it's enough of a problem.
Has to be processed in the same location as well.
Yeah, his takeaway. No, it doesn't say process, does it?
Here.
No, just dried and trimmed.
Oh, it does. Oh, okay.
Here.
Well, we have grow licenses and processing licenses, so it has to be transferred if it's going to be processed at a different location, and then there's different sets of rules based on boundaries of properties and all that. But I won't get into that. But yeah, it's
so I do like his sentence though. It strengthens the supply chain integrity.
I assume that's the point of this. I don't know how much of an effect it will have on it, but yeah,
right.
It's got to be an MSL thing, right?
It's got to be one of those things where product is appearing and then they're using some excuse, some loophole in the system that someone found a fucking loophole and they're closing a loop. Is what it sounds like.
These fucking lawyers, I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
All I think of is what it takes to transport a large harvest, which we have.
Think semi trucks.
I mean, basically,
and refrigerated semi trucks.
And it just seems kind of ridiculous. I guess we're lucky to have a good sized facility in order to do that. Drying is a little tough.
Proper dry rooms.
Drying is a little tough. Yes, the flour is a little tough, but we also have to, like I said before, transfer everything. Has to be in the same. We're a little. Here's another variable. One facility, one grow, is across the street from. We're the same company, but we've got a big grow on one side of the street and a smaller grow on the other side of the street, and of course they all get transferred over to the washroom, so we do walk them across the street,
And in Michigan, if those properties aren't touching, you would have to create a transfer, and you'd have to hire a transport company.
Someone to drive it.
Yep, we're literally right across the street because those property lines aren't touching. But I'm sure you could get a variance for that. Honestly,
I think there's a little bit of a loophole that we're walking or up behind.
And that's what I'm thinking.
I won't tell anyone.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. I think that there's some sort of loophole in Michigan's law right now that someone's exploiting. And then they're like,
it must be why this is here, right? Like it just seems some of these seem silly, but this seems like who the fuck is this is for even,
And honestly, I don't get into that metric and requirement. So we very well may have a separate license across the street. The transfer process, I'm not even involved in that, so I don't even know if they use I assume we use a box truck, but I mean, it's literally 100 yards.
This is fucking zip line that shit over, bro. Like, why not?
But I mean, it's a lot. It's a walk-in freezer or two worth of product.
All right, well, zip line the freezer over. What the fuck are we doing, Pedro? God,
dude, you don't know how many times I've tried.
Get behind a charger like Fast and Furious.
I tried to get the owner to get us another couple freezers, and man, trying to get anything is just. Of course, you got to prove ROI.
Right. Yeah, when the business is established, they don't want to listen to anybody else at that point. But all right, let's keep this thing moving. CRA is proposing to eliminate the requirement to render marijuana waste unusable before disposal. So CLL Take Away simplifies waste management for licensees, aligns Michigan with other states that have dropped this unnecessary regulation. It creates potential hazard that licensees will trash products that will make it out to the public as samples. This is kind of not what I was expecting here, if I'm honest with you.
So is this a step backwards?
That's what it feels like to me in terms of compared to everything else.
We are right now required anything that is end of the road waste has to be rendered unusable.
Mixed with soil, mixed with garbage, mixed with ethanol.
Stupid, just ridiculous.
Or acetone.
It's just ridiculous. Some of it's actually even transported to the dump, but in different locations. Anyways, this seems like a step backwards. And I don't know. And I don't know. I mean, I've even now suggested that we use the waste as compost and stop wasting.
Okay. So here's a good point there. If we're not rendering it unusable, maybe it's then considered. There you go. Compost your enemies. Nice shirt. So maybe we could use it as compost if we're not dousing it in acetone or mixing it with kitty litter or something like that. Maybe it actually can be a reusable product then.
The minute I proposed that to the owner, he's like, well, then we have to buy a skid steer and we have to have area that we have to hire people to do that. And so
the labor involved. The next thing you know, it's way more expensive than you thought.
We're back to ROI.
Yep. It feels like going backwards. I'm leery of his potential hazard. I think what it probably does is creates trash pandas. You're just going to have a lot more break-ins and fence cuttings and people going through dumpsters. Whereas if they know that everything you throw away is soaked in something disgusting, they're not going to do that.
Yeah, that's what they say though, is they, it's unnecessary and it creates, that it creates a potential hazard that.
No, that's what
it's like.
Well, they say that the hazard though is that you'll throw away good stuff so that you can give it away as samples because it's considered trash, and then you can just give it away. So he's saying the potential hazard that licensees will trash products that will then make it out to the public as samples.
Which there's already regulations surrounding samples, so I don't understand why you have to trash them. You can still give them away. Like if they've opened that up, it's not the same way it was 2 years ago or whatever, where you literally couldn't give shit away. But I don't know. This is a weird one to me because it seems like they're trying to solve a problem where a problem doesn't exist.
Right. A solution for no problem.
Yeah.
So the waste, are we just referring to processed flour? What if something is...
It's going to be fan leaves as well. It's going to be everything, right?
Anything that failed testing.
Yeah. What if something is already in, just a scenario, already in their vape pens and something happens to the vape pens, whether
failed
it's
testing.
Yeah. So now you have 5,000 already packaged vape carts. So now we're talking about disposing of not flour.
Right.
So now does that change?
It would, under this rule, it would be the same thing. It would just be tossing them out. I can tell you that 99 times out of 100, if you talk to, well, they're not going to tell you, but there's very few business owners or stakeholders out there that are going to tell you to actually trash those things. So those are probably going to go somewhere. And I think that's where they're trying to get, I don't know. I think they're just trying to get like a documentation trail here. I'm still struggling to understand how this is helping. But yes, I think, Pedro, to answer your question, Doesn't matter if it was 5,000 grams of flour or 5,000 grams of fully packaged vape cartridges. It's supposed to go in the trash.
Sure.
And rendering them unusable would probably look a lot different if it was 5,000 grams of flour versus 5,000 grams of already packaged vape pens. Because I would assume you're going to go rent a what are those? A roller and just roll over like 5,000. I don't know. I don't know what you do at that point. Maybe have a sweet bonfire. I mean, I've definitely burned some stems and leaves and cannabis plants before that. I'm like, I'm pretty sure my neighbors are getting high right now.
But once you talk about prepackaged, basically vapes at that point in time, how do you render that?
That's what I'm saying. What do you just roll over it with like one of those construction like asphalt rollers? You know what I mean? Just flatten everything and then scrape it off the cement.
We discarded hard drives. I mean, they bring out the industrial shredder and chuck
right
that
now. You got to
in.
fucking pay someone, right? Of course. So this is just regulation to pay someone. All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide before
they're saying they're getting rid of that. They're getting rid of that requirement to force you to make it.
Oh, good point. Good point. All right. See, you're going to be upset for nothing.
Yeah. See, so they're getting rid of you having to call the industrial shredder.
This is why I'm confused about this, because it doesn't really make sense. It's like, is there a problem? Are we solving a problem? Why are we even writing this regulation? I don't understand. Next, the CRA is evolving. Get ready. The CRA now requires new packaging tag for intermediary products, including remediated products. What?
Yes.
Did they just say remediated products? What's remediation? It's like giving products a deep clean. Products are treated to remove contaminants, meet strict safety standards. Why this matters? No nasty stuff on the shelf. Just because it's been quote unquote zapped clean doesn't mean quality should be hidden. Ensures products are clean and safe. Builds transparency and trust between businesses and consumers. CLL takeaway. With new tags, you'll know the journey your product has been through. Transparency for the win. The future is now. Okay. Is that what this is? Is this going to tell us whether or not a product has been remediated?
Yeah. And if you look at the right-hand side, all remediated products must be tagged. If you suspect something, the CRA proposes an anonymous tip line for reporting suspected remediated products. Of course, then he says that's going to work out great.
So it's not allowing remediated product. It's just informing the customer.
Yeah. So it doesn't change anything. It's still going to be there. It's just now you're going to know.
But is this an actual labeling law that we got in Michigan of all states in the United States of America that is benefiting the consumer? A labeling law?
Right. I mean, that, like we said earlier, that's a label that I believe deserves to be on there.
It almost goes back to
be required.
Needing a pull-out, an insert.
Yeah, but you don't want it on a pull-out. You don't want this shit buried. Like, you want this in big fucking bold letters on the box.
A giant R on there.
Yeah. Do it like Canada and do, the black lungs on their cigarette packs and shit.
This goes down to the road of literally what is remediation and how are you remediating, and is there remediation that's okay versus that's not?
That's a great question. I mean, probably something that hasn't been determined here.
Yeah. I don't like it myself. I won't smoke it, but the science says it's clean. I still don't fucking want to smoke it. You know what I mean? It's one of those, like, if I get an apple and there's a worm in it, I ain't cutting half of it off.
But we still haven't defined it though. So what won't you smoke?
Product that has failed testing in its life.
What if it's never been tested?
Ooh. Well, then I know the grower, because that's the only time that ever happens.
What if heat is the only remediation method?
No, suck my dick. I want real weed.
Yeah,
I'm just proposing.
I don't like your rosin.
Yeah. No, I'm again, if it's ever failed testing, I don't want it. It's just
so. I mean, and that's where they're kind of getting at is, so label.
And that's what remediation is. It's I failed testing once. I did a process, and then
right, and now I've passed. In Michigan, that's how it's.
Do you then need to inform the method of remediation?
It doesn't sound like you will. I don't think it matters. I think it's all this is about whether or not you failed once and then passed the second time, and now you're on a shelf. I think that's all it is. And honestly, that's how it should be. That's how it should have been from the start.
Mm-hmm.
If you failed testing in the first place, I don't want to buy your product at all.
Right. Like if you go in,
you need to remediate it to make it a shelf stable, a shelf acceptable product. I want nothing to do with it, and no one should.
If you go in and all the $5 grams all have the remediated tag, it starts to shed some light on some stuff.
And the discount shelf.
Yeah. Like, look, these are 10 for $100. What are these? Or 20 for $100?
What is this giant bright orange label on the side?
Yeah. Why am I getting a 10-gram baller jar for $30?
All right, so let's get on to this last slide because I'm going to have to take off here. But this says biggest update yet with couple big sirens there. Allow the CRA to deny a license or license renewal based on civil judgments / court orders resulting from unpaid debt for work, services, products, or equipment provided solely in the cannabis industry. This is great. The CRA will add a field to the licensing application to collect this information. So again, this says biggest update yet. Pay your debts or lose your license. Under R420.11 parentheses I don't know however you say that. The CRA can now deny your license or renewal if you've got unpaid debts in the cannabis industry, whether that's work, services, products, or equipment. New field on applications to track this info. Transparency is key. Bottom line, if you don't pay up, you risk your entire business. Stay on top of it. What are your guys' thoughts on that one?
It's a good one.
How far is too far?
Well, so here's the thing. When you're talking debts, you've already agreed on terms. If I'm a net 30 or a net 90 and it's 30 days and you don't pay, and we've got a 20-day grace period and that goes by and you still don't pay, and then 3 months go by and you renew your license, you can't renew. That's basically what this is.
Listen, I love this from a business standpoint. But it did say
civil judgment, right? So you have to take them to court first. You have to get judgment against them. So the debt has to be far enough out that you're able to get a judgment. So it's not like you don't have you're not going to get blindsided by this as a licensee.
Right.
You're doing this deliberately and
it's not like deals put in place where you're allowed to be, behind, or like this is strictly, once you get to that involving the court level, really.
Basically.
Yeah.
They'll be pissed enough that you'll know before.
Yeah. There's a lot of that going on in the industry right now, though. There's a lot of unpaid debts. And I think that will help a lot because the money has to trickle down. If you've got growers that aren't being paid, you've got a problem. If you've got fucking everyone, it's just middlemen who are not being paid, who are delivering product and they're paying. There's just all kinds of levels where everyone's fucking. It just
gives too much leverage to the dispensary, and they're already the ones that are going to be running this industry. So let's cut that shit out.
The biggest debt here in Colorado is dispensaries actually paying for the product. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous.
And this should stop that here, or at least
I hope so.
Yeah, if it doesn't stop it, it will kill the bad actors.
It's shutting down.
Yes, yeah.
It's shutting down companies and I think I've mentioned this before, allowing the large companies in the state to acquire things that are already set up. It grows that are going to.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's also preventing a small company from getting screwed by a large company not paying them.
No, this is good. Yeah, I'm saying the
dispensary. It can go both ways. No, yeah,
dispensaries not paying or shutting down anybody that doesn't have capital to stay alive long enough to wait for that debt to be paid.
Exactly. And that's, I heard a lot of nightmare stories out of California of people waiting out the smaller people to go under, knowing that they won't have to pay them. And they've got the capital and the funds to fight it. So, yeah.
Yeah, Kelly's not the only place. I'd have to agree too. I have to jet, but I don't know if you guys want to talk about this at all. I'm going to throw it in the chat to everyone on all channels, and you guys can go ahead and feel free to discuss this. This is a article from Politico with Brian Hanna, the executive director of the Michigan CRA, or Cannabis Regulatory Agency. And it talks about how Michigan created a $10 billion weed market. Superior Buds, I'll leave this to you to share. Guys, I love you all. Have a great night. And I will see you guys next week.
Take care, man. Yep, have a good weekend.
Don't forget to hit the end stream button when you guys are done.
See you, dude. I can't click on the link over here.
I have it, but my monitor is too big. Hold on one sec.
And I'm about
full of ads.
I'm about ready to check out over here if you don't want to get into it.
I'm getting pretty beat myself here.
When he mentioned it, I knew nothing of it, and it didn't sound like I had much input.
But I will show off the fun little new toy here.
Oh, that's right.
Real quick. So the new controller AI Plus from AC Infinity. They're starting to arrive on people's doorsteps. They're fun little AI controllers. They're actually a lot larger than any of the other controllers.
I'm going to have them send me one for sure.
So much larger screen.
That's not horrible, yeah.
And a lot of the ports on the bottom.
Wow.
So everything that they're releasing now will have the UIS ecosystem.
That'll be a fun
And then
toy.
the antenna is actually that's what's your lung room sensor. So you put this in your lung room, and then you have another sensor that goes into your tent. So using any of the AC Infinity tents, they got the nice mount on the outside.
Yeah, more information.
Yep.
More information.
And it's pretty cool because, like you said, your house is different, is kind of like your lung room. That's where you're pulling from. But what's nice about this sensor is it can go, well, should I turn on the humidifier, or is it more humid outside? And can I use that air? Or is it too hot outside right now and I can't use that humid air? I have to wait till it cools down at night. Then I can use, it can make all those decisions for you. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's where the big benefit for smaller grows is going to come from, because it's going to help balance your environment
too.
Yeah, you know the balance, the moving humidifiers and dehumidifiers, and where you put it, where the fans are, like everything about it. Now, this controller can control your oscillating fans, and they just released the 10-inch oscillating for tents as well, or 10
crazy.
Yeah. So, and those ones have metal gears in them now. They should last a lot longer.
Very cool.
No, their new stuff's getting pretty cool. It'll be fun.
Looks like everybody in chat's about ready to be done too. So let's call it a night. And
take care, everybody.
Hopefully see you next week, right?
Yeah, I think next week we should have a guest back on again, and back to oops, I almost dropped this right on the floor. Back to our regular scheduled program.
See you, everybody. Have a good night.
Take care, everyone. Have a great night.